I was 26 when this happened, and it was my first time ever going to Coachella. My friend Alyssa and I had talked about going for years, but either money got in the way or one of us couldn't get time off work. That year, everything finally lined up, so we actually committed to it. We flew out to California, rented a little 2-bedroom Airbnb, and made a whole trip out of it. We were both really excited because neither of us had ever been to a festival that big before. We had both been to smaller concerts and local stuff, but nothing on that level. The whole first day honestly felt like stepping into another world. Everywhere you looked, there were huge crowds, weird outfits, music coming from different directions, and people acting like they had no responsibilities at all. Best way to put it, it was a fairy tale world. It was kind of overwhelming at first, but in a good way. We had a really good first 2 days. Nothing bad happened. We saw a bunch of artists we liked, took pictures everywhere, ate overpriced food, and stayed out late. We were tired by the end of each night, but it was worth it. By the third day, we were exhausted, but it was that kind of exhausted where you know you just have to push through because it's the last day and you don't want to waste it. Before the trip, Alyssa had brought up the idea of bringing Molly. I had only done it one other time years before, and it had been fine, so I agreed. We kept saying we'd save it for the last day, and that's exactly what we did. Looking back, I wish more than anything I never touched it. We took it in the late afternoon before one of the sets we were really excited for. At first, I didn't feel much. We were walking around trying to get closer to one of the stages, and I remember saying to Alyssa that I thought maybe it was weak or old because it wasn't hitting me. She said the same thing because she wasn't feeling much either. For a while, everything seemed normal. Then, out of nowhere, it started kicking in hard. At first, I actually liked it. I felt lighter, more social, and everything around me seemed brighter and more exciting. The music sounded amazing. I remember thinking that I understood why people did it at festivals. But after maybe an hour, something started bothering me. I kept noticing the same person. At first I thought I was imagining it. There were thousands of people there, so of course you're gonna accidentally notice the same outfit or the same face more than once. But this wasn't like that. It was the same actual guy. The first time I really noticed him, he was maybe 20 feet away in the crowd. He looked older than most people around us, maybe around 35. He had dark hair, kind of scruffy facial hair, and was wearing a black shirt and boots, which already made him stand out because most people there were dressed way lighter and more colorful. He wasn't doing anything crazy, he was just standing there looking in our direction. I didn't let it bother me at first. Then later I saw him again near one of the drink stands, then again when we were moving between stages, then again when Alyssa and I were standing off to the side near a fence trying to decide where to go next. After the 4th or 5th time, I told Alyssa I kept seeing the same guy everywhere. She laughed and right away said it was probably just the Molly and that I was focusing too hard on random people. I remember laughing a little too because I didn't want to sound too paranoid, but it was getting hard to brush off. It wasn't like I was just noticing him in the distance once in a while. It felt like every time I turned around he was there. Not right next to me, but always somewhere in view. Hours went by like that. I was trying to still enjoy myself, but the high had started feeling off. It stopped being that warm, fun feeling and started turning into this restless, overstimulated feeling. My jaw tensed up, my heart felt too fast, and I couldn't seem to relax. I told myself I was probably dehydrated or tired all weekend, barely sleeping, walking around in the heat, drinking, everything. At one point when we were packed into the crowd waiting for another set, that guy finally came right up to me. It happened so suddenly that I froze for a second. He came up on my side smiling and started trying to dance near me like he was just some random friendly festival guy. Then he leaned in and started saying stuff to me that I could barely hear over the music, but it was obvious he was flirting. I remember him saying I looked really good and asking if I was there with anyone. I told him I was there with my friend and tried to be polite about it because I didn't want to set him off or make a scene. I kind of smiled and shook my head and said I was good. He kept hovering though. It wasn't aggressive yet, but it was pushy enough to make me uncomfortable. I turned to pull Alyssa closer to me so we could just move away, and that was when I realized she wasn't there anymore. I started turning in circles looking for her, thinking maybe she just moved a few feet away, but I couldn't see her anywhere. That made me panic way faster than it normally would because of how off I already felt. The guy noticed right away that I was looking around and asked if I lost my friend. I said yes. Then he said he could help me look for her. There was something about the way he said it that made me instantly not trust him at all. It was too eager. I just told him no thanks and started pushing my way out of the crowd. He didn't grab me or anything, but I could feel him watching me leave. I finally got away from that stage and found a patch of grass farther back where it was quieter and less packed. I sat down because I felt like my body was shutting down on me. My vision started getting weird in a way I'd never felt before. The best way I can describe it is that everything looked squiggly. Not blurry exactly, but like nothing would stay still. The lights, the people, even the ground all had this shaky look to them. It scared me because I knew then that I had taken too much or had some kind of bad reaction. I started calling Alyssa over and over. The calls kept failing or not going through because the service there was terrible. I probably called her 10 times before one finally connected. When she picked up, I could barely hear her, but I just kept telling her where I was and that I needed her to come get me because something was wrong. It felt like forever before she found me, but it was probably only around 15 minutes. She could tell right away I was not okay. I told her I needed to leave, and she didn't argue with me. We ended up leaving the festival way earlier than we planned because I was having such a bad high. The walk out felt endless. Every noise felt too loud, and every person brushing past me made me jump. I kept looking around, half expecting to see that same guy again, but I didn't. Back at the Airbnb, both of us were completely drained. We had one more night there, and then we were flying home the next evening. Alyssa started talking about packing some of her stuff up that night so she wouldn't have to do it in the morning, but I told her I'd do mine tomorrow. I just wanted to lay down. My body was exhausted in a way that overpowered everything else. Even though I was still high, I felt so physically dead that I just crawled into bed, shut the light off, and laid there in the dark. I didn't feel normal, but I felt too tired to care. I must have drifted off into this half-sleep state because I wasn't fully out, but I definitely lost track of time. Then at some point, I opened my eyes. I have no idea what woke me up. Maybe a sound, maybe just my body being on edge, but the second I looked toward the bedroom doorway, I saw a figure standing there. It was tall and completely still, just inside the doorway, facing me. At first, my brain couldn't even process what I was looking at. I thought maybe Alyssa was standing there for some reason, but it was too tall and broad. Then I focused on the face. Even in the dark, I could tell. It was the man from the festival. I know how insane that sounds, especially with the state I was in, but that's exactly what I saw. He stood there looking at me from a few feet away from my bed. I remember this horrible, cold feeling going through my whole body. Then I started screaming. Not just yelling, full-on screaming as loud as I could while throwing the covers over my head like that was going to do something. I kept screaming until Alyssa came into my room. The second she turned on the light, there was nobody there. The doorway was empty. The room was empty. Alyssa kept asking me what happened, and I was crying so hard I could barely get the words out. I told her I saw the guy from the festival standing in my doorway. She looked freaked out by how serious I was, but she kept telling me that it had to be the drugs and that I was still having a bad high. I honestly wanted to believe her, because the other option was way worse. But what bothered me was how real it looked. It didn't feel dreamlike at all. It felt like waking up and seeing an actual person in the room. I begged Alyssa to sleep in the bed with me that night, and she did. Neither of us wanted to go back to sleep after that, so we laid there talking quietly for a while with the lights on in the hallway. She kept trying to calm me down and make normal conversation. Eventually, somehow, we both drifted off. The next morning, I woke up to Alyssa screaming my name and shaking me. For a second, I thought maybe I was still dreaming. Then I sat up and saw her standing near my bedroom doorway, staring at the floor. I looked down and saw muddy boot prints on the hardwood. I still get chills thinking about it. They started near the front part of the house and came down the hall. Then they stopped right at the doorway, exactly where I had seen that figure standing. After that, the prints turned around and went back down the hall toward the front door. I remember just staring at them, feeling this rush of sickness go through me. It was like my whole body dropped. That was the moment I realized what I saw was not some Molly hallucination. Somebody had really been inside that house while we were sleeping, or while I was half asleep. And unless there was some impossible coincidence, it was him. Alyssa looked just as scared as I felt. We started checking everything right away. We made sure the front door was locked now, checked the windows, checked both bedrooms, the bathroom, every room. Nothing obvious was missing, which somehow made it creepier to me. It meant whoever came in wasn't just trying to steal something. We packed faster than I thought possible. Neither of us showered, ate, or even really talked much. We just threw everything. Once we were out, we contacted the Airbnb host and told them someone had broken in during the night. I remember sending pictures of the prints because I wanted proof that I wasn't crazy. The host sounded shocked and apologetic, but by then I didn't care. I just wanted to leave. We spent the rest of that day basically on edge until it was finally time to go to the airport. We made it home safely and nothing else happened, but that whole trip has stayed with me ever since. What bothers me most is not knowing exactly how he found us, assuming it really was him. Maybe he followed us when we left. Maybe he saw us call a ride. Maybe he watched from farther away than I realized. I don't know. I just know I saw that man at the festival over and over, then I saw him in the doorway, and the boot prints proved someone had actually been there. Ever since that happened, I have never touched Molly again or any drug like it. People joke about bad trips, but that experience permanently changed how I think. Even now, I guess due to PTSD, I still glance at the bedroom doorway first before anything else.
I was flying across the country. I got a text from Valentina telling me to come outside so she could pick me up. She and her dad came to pick me up in an old Toyota. I don't remember.
Over the summer, my girlfriend from college, Valentina, invited me to come visit her family. Her family lives in San Diego, California. My parents basically forced me to go because I wasn't doing anything else that summer besides working and sleeping. It was a Friday afternoon, and I had just gotten off my plane. The flight felt like forever since I was flying across the country. I got a text from Valentina telling me to come outside so she could pick me up. She and her dad came to pick me up in an old Toyota. I don't remember much from the car ride to her beach house, though. We pulled up to a beautiful villa on the beach. Valentina's dad helped me get my suitcase out and escorted me to my room. My room was on the lower level, separated from everyone else upstairs. For a guest room, however, it had a great view of the beach. I could also see the side stairs that led to the front door on the second floor. I unpacked my clothes and toiletries, trying to get settled into my room. Then I heard knocking on my door. It was Valentina. She wanted me to meet her siblings, but I'm not going to talk about them much, as they're irrelevant to the story. However, she introduced me to her mom. Her mom was a nice older woman. She made me feel welcomed. Valentina ended the conversation when she said she was taking me to the beach. She went upstairs to change. I went to my room to do the same. We got on the beach and the sun was setting. She told me it's a great time to take some pictures for my Instagram. Being the nice and helpful person I am, I agreed I would take her pictures. The beach was crowded, so I knew this would be difficult. I probably took 100 pictures before she was finally satisfied. I looked back at the pictures, and something was off about them. I noticed a man in the background of every picture, sometimes staring at Valentina from behind or staring at me. I looked at the general direction he was standing in the most recent picture, but he was gone. I muttered to myself, what the f***? I tried telling Valentina, but she just shrugged it off. I started to feel very paranoid. I always had the fear of someone stalking me. I knew I had to be a man and hide this fear. Later, Valentina and I went back out to the beach. It was around midnight, and one of her best friends was having a bonfire. We walked down to the beach to the gathering. After being a social butterfly for a while, my boss called me. He was pretty chill, so I told him about my trip and when I would be back. As I was talking to him, I saw a black figure on the beach, just staring at me. I pretended not to see him and just turned the other direction. I guess my boss noticed my sudden pause because he asked, "Are you okay?" I responded quickly saying, "Yeah, I was just a little surprised by what I just saw." He didn't question it and immediately got back on topic. The party started to die down. People were finishing up their drinks and getting into their Ubers. I asked Valentina's best friend, who was sober, if she could drive us home. She agreed to take us home since we were a 2-minute drive away. In the car, Valentina asked me, why didn't we just walk back on the beach? I was debating whether I should tell her the truth or if I should just make something up. I told her, "You're absolutely plastered right now. There's no way you're walking." She rolled her eyes. We got home and I helped her upstairs because I needed her to be quiet. I slept in her room that night because I didn't feel safe being alone downstairs near the beach. The next day came. I woke up with a feeling of having to throw up. I stayed in bed all day. I told Valentina and her parents that I just needed rest for a day. Then I would be able to function for the rest of the week. I woke up around 7 p.m. to Valentina knocking on my door. She told me they're going to downtown San Diego for dinner, but would be back before midnight. I nodded my head in agreement, then went back to sleep, tapping on a glass table rapidly. It was getting so annoying that I woke up. The tapping stopped. I turned on my side to face the exterior stairs, and that was when I saw it. I saw the guy from the pictures at the beach at my window, waving at me.
Long before the cops showed up.
He had a black hood on. He went running up the stairs, where I heard the front door open. I nearly screamed. Wasn't the front door locked? How was he in the house? I went to my door and put my weight on it. He wasn't getting in. I heard nothing. No one going down the stairs or anything. Then I heard someone on the other side of the door jerking the door handle. He was trying to put his weight into the door, but nothing was coming through that door. I heard him back away from the door. That's when I grabbed my phone and called 911. It took 5 minutes before I heard the police opening the front door. I decided it was safe to leave my room, and I booked it upstairs. But of course, the creep had left long before the cops showed up. Shortly behind the cops, Valentina's family showed up worried. They asked me if I was okay, but that wasn't what was important. I needed to make sure he didn't take or do anything. I heard a scream from Valentina as she went to her room. I followed her in. She pointed to a camera in the corner of the room. The police took it for investigation. The creep also took Valentina's clothes and bathing suits. I stayed for the rest of the week, but I'm still scared from that experience 2 months later. I don't know how that guy found us or what his intentions were. I didn't know if he wanted me or Valentina, but most frightening, what would he have done if he did get into my room?
It was clean, modern, had white walls, concrete floors, basic furniture. Backyard had a pool, some lounge chairs, and one of those small storage sheds.
My girlfriend and I took a trip to Palm Springs last year because we both needed a break from work and just wanted somewhere quiet where we could sit by a pool and relax. We found a modern-looking Airbnb that was about 15 minutes outside the main part of the city, kind of on the edge where the houses start getting more spaced apart and the desert starts taking over. It was a one-story house with big glass doors facing the backyard and a decent-sized pool. The listing said it was very private and good for couples. That was exactly what we wanted. We booked it for 4 nights. When we arrived, the place looked exactly like the photos. It was clean, modern, had white walls, concrete floors, basic furniture. The backyard had a pool, some lounge chairs, and one of those small storage sheds off to the side that I assumed was just for pool equipment. There was desert all around the back fence, and you couldn't really see any neighbors from the yard. The host never met us in person. We just got a door code. Everything felt normal the first day. We went out to dinner, came back, watched TV, and went to sleep. The first weird thing happened the first night, but it was small. Around maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, I woke up because I thought I heard something outside. It sounded like maybe a light thump or something hitting the side of the house. I just assumed it was the house settling or maybe wind. Desert areas get weird temperature changes at night, so I figured it was that. I went back to sleep. The second day, we mostly stayed by the pool. At one point, while we were laying on the chairs, I thought I heard what sounded like a voice somewhere far away. Not like someone talking normally, more like someone calling something out. I even asked my girlfriend if she heard it. She said she thought she heard something, but we both kind of laughed it off because there was basically nothing around us. There was no sidewalks, there was no foot traffic, it was just sand and scattered houses way off in the distance. We even joked it was probably just something dragging lightly against the outside wall near the bedroom. I got up and looked through the glass door, but didn't see anything. The backyard lights weren't on, and everything looked normal. I told her it was probably just branches or some animal. There were lizards and stuff around, so we didn't think much of it. Night 2, we again heard a couple sounds, but nothing that made us think someone was actually there. Just random ticks and small impacts that you could easily explain away. Night 3 was when everything changed. We had gone to bed around midnight, and I was still awake scrolling on my phone when I noticed light coming through the sides of the blinds. At first, I thought maybe a car drove by, but then it stayed on. I got up and looked through the edge of the blinds and saw one of the motion lights on in the backyard. I stood there for maybe 20 seconds, and then it shut off. About maybe 10 seconds later, another one turned on further down along the side of the house. That immediately made my stomach drop because it didn't feel random. It felt like something was triggering them in a path. My girlfriend asked what I was doing, and I told her I thought someone might be outside. She immediately sat up and got scared. We both watched as another light turned on near the back fence, then another closer to the pool. It really looked like someone walking around the outside of the house. She started telling me to close the blinds fully. She kept saying, "Shut them, shut them." I closed them completely, and we both just sat there quietly. I could tell she was genuinely scared. I was too, but I was trying not to show it. Part of being a man in a relationship, I guess. She kept saying we should just ignore it and kept going to the idea that someone could be trying to break in. I said I was going to go check outside just to make sure. She kept telling me not to. She actually grabbed my arm and told me that was a stupid idea. I told her I would just step out for a minute. I went into the kitchen and grabbed one of the bigger knives from the knife block. I didn't tell her this though, I didn't want to freak her out. I remember my hands actually shaking a little, which isn't normal for me. I opened the back sliding door slowly and stepped outside. It was dead quiet out there. I stood there for maybe a minute just listening. Then I walked slowly around the pool area, looking around the fence line and the corners of the house. I didn't see anyone. After maybe 5 minutes, I started thinking maybe I was just being paranoid and that maybe an animal had triggered the lights. Then I noticed footprints in the sand near the side of the house. They were very clear shoe prints, not animal tracks. This is when my heart started pounding. The prints went from the side of the yard toward the small shed that was next to the house. I followed them slowly, trying to be quiet. I remember thinking if someone was hiding, I didn't want to surprise them, but I also didn't want them surprising me. The footprints went straight to the shed door. When I got there, the doors were completely closed. The footprints just ended right in front of me. That was the moment I felt actual fear. Not just nervousness, real fear. I stood there maybe 3 or 4 feet from the door, just staring at it. I couldn't hear anything at first. I took another step closer and just listened. I was trying to hear breathing or movement. For maybe 5 seconds, there was nothing. Then, very clearly from inside, I heard a man's voice say in a normal, calm tone,
"Excuse me, could you open the door, please?"
I froze completely. I didn't say anything. Then right after that, the same voice did this quiet, creepy laugh. A small laugh, like he thought something was funny. I didn't wait another second. I turned and ran straight back to the house. I slammed the sliding door shut and locked it. My girlfriend was already standing there asking what happened, and I was honestly struggling to get the words out because I was so freaked out. I told her there was someone in the shed and that he asked me to open the door. She immediately became hysterical, asking if I was serious. I told her, yes, unfortunately I am, and I grabbed my phone and called 911. While I was on the phone explaining everything, we saw the outside lights turn off again. Then about 15 seconds later, one of them turned back on. Then another, again like someone moving around the house. But now we couldn't see anything because the blinds were completely shut. That almost made it worse because we knew someone was out there, but couldn't see where. The dispatcher told us to stay inside and keep everything locked. It took about 20 minutes for police to get there because of how far out the house was. Those 20 minutes honestly felt like hours. Every little sound made us jump. When the police finally arrived, they knocked and announced themselves. I've never felt more relieved to see the police, coming from someone who hates the cops. They checked the backyard first and then the shed. One of the officers told me to stay inside while they opened it. After a few minutes, they came back and said nobody was inside anymore. They asked me a bunch of questions about what exactly I heard and saw. I told them everything, including the voice and the footprints. They said it looked like someone may have been staying in there temporarily. They found some empty water bottles and food wrappers. One officer told us sometimes people hide in vacant properties or rental properties, especially in more isolated areas. He said the person probably left once they realized we had called the police. They recommended we not stay there that night, and probably not the rest of the trip either. Before we finished packing, one of the officers asked if either of us owned a dirty baseball hat. We both immediately said no. We went through the whole Airbnb multiple times, and we both knew for a fact that hat was not there before. The officer just kind of nodded and said it was possible the guy had gotten inside at some point, but we'd have no real way of knowing when. That honestly shook me almost more than the shed did, because it meant he might have been inside while we were there, maybe even while we slept. That was enough for us. We packed everything immediately. While we were packing, I tried messaging the Airbnb host multiple times explaining what happened and asking if they knew anything about someone accessing the shed. Every message showed as read, but he never responded. That honestly made it even creepier. No response, not even concern. We left and drove back toward the city and ended up staying at a cheap motel because it was the only thing available last minute. The next day, I contacted Airbnb support directly and explained everything and gave them the police report number. It took about a day of arguing, but they did refund us for the last unused night. We never heard from the host again. No apology or explanation or anything. We tried to still enjoy the rest of the trip and did some normal tourist stuff, but honestly, it kind of stuck with us the whole time. The worst part for me is just knowing someone had been right outside where we were sleeping for multiple nights, and we probably just kept dismissing the sounds as normal house noises. And I think about how calm that voice sounded when he asked me to open the door, like it was some joke to him, like he expected me to actually do it. And honestly, knowing now there was proof he had been inside the house at some point makes it even harder not to think about.